Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, you called this election weeks ago. Any surprises in this result?
Rita, what an evening here in the United States. My God. Look, I mean, it's one thing to project what your gut is and what the early data seem to be indicating. It is another thing to see it play out in real time. I'll be honest, this was actually a more thoroughly dominant performance than even myself in my wildest dreams could have possibly imagined. I really did not think that there was a high likelihood. I thought it was possible, not a high likelihood that Donald Trump would actually win outright the national popular vote, becoming the first Republican presidential candidate to do that since George W. Bush back in 2004. Only the second Republican presidential candidate in my lifetime to do that, going back all the way to George H.W. Bush in 1988. A totally dominant performance, outright winning Hispanic men, young black men going to the Republican column for the largest percentage, probably in the recorded history of American polling. Gen Z millennials essentially within the margin of error. It's a statistical toss-up. The women gender gap not nearly as massive as many pollsters feared that it would be. Just a totally dominant performance, and we're still waiting to see exactly how long the coattails are when it comes to some of these contested U.S. Senate seats. We haven't finished putting the pieces of the puzzle together there, but it's looking like Donald Trump is going to have a historically unprecedented opportunity. He's going to have a sizable lead in the U.S. Senate one way or the other. He's going to have control of the U.S. House. He's going to have a Supreme Court majority that's probably going to be affirmed over the next few years. We'll see what retirements happen, but conservatives are in suddenly a very good place when it comes to America. It seems almost too good to be true. My one hope is that not just the Trump administration, but the broader Republican Party, the broader conservative movement, that we not vanquish this opportunity. We have to take advantage of it. This is very much kind of a once every few decades sort of thing. These next 4 years, every single day is going to matter. We have a lot of major issues. We have to stay laser focused, eyes on the prize, now that this tremendous victory is in the bag.
And, well, Trump's assembled a remarkable team, so you would think they will be able to pull it off. You look at the talent he has. We've talked about Elon Musk in the past. He's got Tulsi Gabbard there, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but also the young talent within the Republicans. When you look at the future and future presidential races, J.D. Vance, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, the future's looking pretty bright for the Republicans.
Look, I've known JD for years. I consider the guy a friend. As I sit here this morning here in Florida talking with you, Rita, it is completely surreal to me that J.D. Vance is about to be vice president of the United States. I feel like I need to pinch myself. I cannot believe that this is like a real thing that is actually happening. I mean, he's 40 years old. The dude has literally been the embodiment of the American dream. But, as great as J.D. Vance's story is, and it is an incredible story, the Donald Trump comeback story, my God. If Hollywood were not as uniformly left-wing as it was, Paramount, Sony, all the major studios would be going to a bidding war right now to get the intellectual property rights to produce this documentary. What an incredible story. Rita, they have done everything to get this guy going at least as far back as the spying on the campaign back in 2016, the FISA, the Russia collusion delusion, the impeachments, the indictments, the assassination attempts. Holy moly. I mean, this is like, this is true Hollywood-esque stuff. And, I don't think that we have all fully processed it here as the sun starts to rise on the East Coast in the United States. But, as Ronald Reagan once said, it is morning in America again. You're totally right. This was a unique coalition that brought Donald Trump across the finish line, not just the demographic slices, but people like Dana White, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. This is not your grandfather's Republican Party. And I say that in a very, very good way. This is not a stodgy old country club sort of party anymore. This is very much a movement, the MAGA America First movement, that is a movement of pragmatic, concrete, America First, common sense priorities. It is not lost in kind of the think tank sauce, so to speak. They're concerned first and foremost about the tangible concerns of the American people. That is a very promising thing. That, above all, I think is why they have won this election.
Now, Michael Schellenberg, a friend of this program, he's worked with Elon Musk, has revealed a great deal about the censorship complex in America. He's called on the Trump to look into America's intelligence agencies. He wants an investigation as part of Trump's administration. He wrote on X that our intelligence community is rotten to the core and serious investigations are required. He talked about the censorship issue, January 6, the origins of COVID, the lawfare that's been used, and really importantly, Josh, the weaponization of the CIA, the FBI, the DHS. Do you see this as something that Trump's team will be looking at? Trump's been a victim of this himself. And again, this might be a once in a lifetime opportunity to actually do something about this issue.
Yeah, I do think that the administration is going to be very focused on this come day one. Look, they're having 4 years to get the ball rolling when it comes to day one executive orders, day one sort of things that an administration with or without a compliant Congress can actually get across the finish line there. Ever since the twilight days of the first Trump administration, the second half of the year 2020, a lot of people in D.C. have been talking about a somewhat obscure thing called Schedule F, which basically refers to the ability of the president of the United States to invoke executive authority to fire people in the executive branch. You know, putting on my legal hat, it actually is constitutional law 101 that a president has plenary inherent ability to fire whoever he wants, period, full stop, end of story, in his executive branch. After all, he is the one who wields the quote unquote executive power. People are going to call him a fascist for firing, cleaning in-house of the NSA in the various other organs of the intelligence community there. But he has that constitutional authority. And I, for one, want those cases to be brought. I want the ACLU to start firing this sort of litigation after Donald Trump does this. Let's get some good Supreme Court precedent on the books, overturn some garbage precedent from 60, 70 years ago that says he can't do this kind of thing, because it is time to clean house. It fundamentally, Rita, above all, is time to actually continue the mission of draining the swamp. And when it comes to the topic of draining the swamp in Washington, there are very few things that have to be cleaned house as thoroughly and completely as the intelligence community here.
Absolutely. And I think Donald Trump has learned from his first time in office. He's going to have better people around him, and the bureaucracy isn't going to be able to frustrate his efforts to clean up the swamp. Before you go, the New York Post is reporting that Donald Trump has seen a 50% increase in his support among Jewish voters in New York. This is compared to the 2020 presidential election. The Jewish community overwhelmingly back the Democrats normally, but the New York Post is saying that Kamala Harris got only 55% of the Jewish vote in New York, compared to President Biden, who got 69% just 4 years ago. Is this a reaction to the squad and how weak the Democrats have been in the face of the anti-Semitism we have seen on the streets of New York and on university campuses?
Yeah, I think that is a large part of it. Look, Israel matters for sure. The overwhelming majority of American Jews correctly view U.S.-Israel relations as very important, both for U.S. foreign policy and for the future of Jewish life in the world. But more to the point, it has to do, I think, yes, with the shocking rise of anti-Semitism here on the home front here in the United States, which the Democratic Party, far from not condemning sufficiently, has actually fanned the flames of that. You've had people like Kamala Harris say that the protesters have a point. Joe Biden, his horrendous snide remarks to the pro-Hamas protesters outside the convention in Chicago. Jewish voters are not stupid. They can hear that and see that with their own ears and their own eyes. And it's about time that Democrats pay some sort of political price. Now, Rita, I still wait patiently for the day that my fellow Jews actually vote majority for a Republican candidate. God willing, that will happen sooner rather than later. I think it actually is going to happen sooner rather than later, by the way, given the demographic shifts here within the Jewish community. But this is a tremendous step in the correct direction. It's been a long time coming, and I, for one, am just very happy to see it. Anecdotally, I had a lot of family members, close friends in the Jewish community who are not typical conservative Republican voters who actually did cross the aisle this time. So I thought it was going to be something along these lines, but it's great to see it actually happen as well. That's for sure.